Okay, welcome everyone. This is John Corcoran, and this is a recording of my presentation, How to Cold Email Any VIP, Build a Relationship, and Turn that Relationship into Revenue. And I apologize if you were on the webinar the other day where I had some audio problems with my MacBook. It's not that old a computer, and it never had a problem with it before, so it drove me crazy that I was having a problem with that. But what I figured I would do is I just record the presentation, send it out to you so you can watch it at your leisure. You can listen to me at triple time if you want to. I'll be talking super fast, or whenever you have time to watch it. I'm also going to do this live, so you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions live if you'd like to do that as well. So this is How to Cold Email a VIP, Build a Relationship, and Turn that Relationship into Revenue. I want to thank Danny, such a great guy, someone that I admired from afar for a long time, and I feel fortunate to call him a friend now. Got to know him over the course of the last year or so. We belong to a couple of groups together, and I've gotten to know him through that, and we've been able to work together on a number of different things. He's been on my podcast a couple of times. I've been on his podcast, and just a great collaborator. I have a lot of respect for the work that he has done and the work that he continues to do. So I focus on building better relationships in business. I want to help all of you to get better at building better relationships in business. And so I want to start this off with a couple of questions. First is, who here hates going to boring networking events? Right? I mean, don't we hate that? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, going to places where you don't know anyone, it's all a bunch of strangers, you're not sure who to talk to, you make this boring chit chat. Here's another question. How about cold calling? Who here hates cold calling? I don't know about you. I can't stand it. I did it a lot when I was younger, and it wasn't a lot of fun. There's a lot better way to do it. And finally, who hates making small talk with sleazy networkers, guys like this? You know, we all have the image of someone who comes up to you at some kind of cocktail party and sticks his business card in your hand as soon as he comes up to you and wants to tell you about his thing. And it's so annoying. They're trying to sell you on something as soon as you meet them. Well, I think that's the reason that the word networking has got a bad rap. And actually, if you do it the right way, building a network, building connections, building relationships with people, then it really doesn't have to be sleazy. It doesn't have to be salesy. You can feel very comfortable about it, and it can really drive your revenue. Okay, so in this presentation, I want to show you how you can kick networking to the curb. I'm going to walk you through my system for building relationships with VIPs who matter. I'm going to use that term kind of interchangeably, VIPs who matter, influencers, basically whatever industry you're in, but the people who you look up to, the people who you admire, people who are more advanced than you are, more successful than you are, who you'd like to build a relationship with. I'm going to show you how I went from a humble middle-class family, no special connections or anything like that. I was actually a product of public schools, didn't go to any Ivy League schools. I actually flunked kindergarten, did it twice, to by today I've met presidents. I've worked for one president. I've met a number of world-famous entrepreneurs. I've appeared on top websites, blogs, and podcasts. Thousands of new subscribers have come into my business, and I've connected with many famous entrepreneurs, Gary Vaynerchuk, Noah Kagan. All these guys have been on my podcast and actually been able to turn those relationships, here's the key point, into clients and revenues for my business. This isn't just about connecting with people who are famous for the sake of connecting with people who are famous. This is about turning it into revenues, income, opportunities, and clients and customers for your business. Today, I run 2 businesses that I can manage from my laptop anywhere with an internet connection, even though, not that long ago, I was working in a job that I really couldn't stand. So you want to know how I did it? Well, when I email a VIP, I get responses like this. This is Noah Kagan, the founder of AppSumo. Damn, you write a great cold email. Funny thing is, he actually sells email templates. He sent me cookies a couple of days after that email. Dan Pink, he's the author To Sell Is Human, Drive, a number of books that I'm a huge fan of his. This is his response. Marie Forleo, a very successful online entrepreneur. This is her response. Michael Port, the author of Book Yourself Solid, very successful online entrepreneur, author, speaker, coach. This is his response. Bob Berg, the author of Endless Referrals and The Go-Giver. You guys get the idea. These are the types of responses that I get when I send out emails. So on this training, I want to show you how you can do it as well, okay? No matter where in the world you live, even if you feel like you have nothing to offer. So does it sound exciting to you guys? I would like to know who you want to connect with. Normally at this point in the presentation, I'd be asking you to put it in the chat, but what you can do is just think about it over yourself. Who are the types of people that you want to connect with? And I want to give you an incentive to stick around here to the end of this presentation. Again, this doesn't really work when you're watching it on YouTube and you can accelerate the speed here, but I have a gift for you, a marketing tool that I created that you can use to grow your income. So first, I want to share some information on why it's so hard to connect with influencers. And the reason is we are inundated with messages, email, social media, informational messages, you name it. In fact, this is statistics a little bit out of date now, but 145 billion emails sent every day. And man, I feel like half of them end up in my inbox. It's unbelievable how many emails are sent each day. And we actually spend over a quarter of our working week reading and responding to email. It's just a phenomenal amount of time. But here's the good news. If you're sincere, if you're honest, if you're open, there are more opportunities and there are more tools for connecting with VIPs than ever before in human history. And it's actually easier than ever to turn those relationships into income. So I want to share with you a story. Now, I was a chubby 13-year-old kid. This is me. I don't even know how I got that trophy, to quite honest. I probably just hit some other kid so he could give it to me so I could take the picture. I used to come home in the afternoon and eat sour cream and onion potato chips and drink a big cherry Coke and then fill it up and play video games all afternoon. So I wasn't really motivated. I was just kind of lost my way. And one of the defining experiences of my childhood, at 13 years old, I come home from school one day and my dad's car is parked in the driveway and he was never home that early from work. And I go into the house, I go into the living room, he's sitting on the couch. And the reason he was sitting on the couch was because he'd been laid off. He'd lost his job. And, I don't want to overstate it. My family, we struggled. We weren't homeless, but we really did struggle. We had to cut back as much as possible. And it was a period of many months before my dad got a job. And guess what? That didn't just happen to me once. That happened to me 3 times when I was growing up. And my family really struggled to get by. My mom had to go to work, get whatever work she could. She actually was working while my dad was working, but she'd work more hours, as much as she could, in order to make more income. And it was a real struggle. And I desperately wanted my dad to be able to call someone up and say, give me a job. But he couldn't. He didn't have that kind of connection. And so it really inspired me. It really lit a fire under me. It made me want to figure out, how can you prevent this from happening? Or better yet, how can you build better systems around yourself or prepare yourself to prevent that from happening and go even further to be successful? And so what I did was I devoured books. In my teenage years, I read numerous autobiographies and biographies about successful politicians and leaders and entrepreneurs and athletes and actors and directors. And what I found was, universally, they all did a tremendous job of building relationships and building a network. And so I applied that to my life. I started applying that, and I started working hard to build better relationships with people. And if you flash forward 10 years from that picture of me with a trophy when I was 13 years old, within 10 years, at 20 years old, I'd been an early employee of DreamWorks, working for Steven Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and David Geffen. At 23 years old, I landed my dream job as a writer in the Clinton White House. And I was on the fast track to a career in politics, maybe becoming a presidential candidate's speechwriter or running for Congress myself one day even. And after the White House, I went to go work as a speechwriter to the governor of California. And things were going great. The governor had gotten reelected to another 4-year term. Excuse me. And working in politics was really good to me. I got to meet some amazing people. That was President Obama before he became president. And I just met a girl and I bought my first house. So life was really good for me. And then one day it all came crumbling down. So a little action movie star, you may have heard of him, by the name of Arnold Schwarzenegger, he decides to throw his hat into the California recall election. I was working for the governor, who is now known by history as the guy who was recalled by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the rest was history. So I was actually terminated by the Terminator, believe it or not. Not every day you can say that happened. And guess what? Here we were. We're back in the same scenario. Instead of my father's car, it was my car in the driveway. I was now the one who was at home in the middle of the day, sitting on my own couch in the living room. And you know what? There's actually a silver lining, because I was able to get a job immediately. I was able to basically walk out of the governor's office and walk right into a new job because of the network that I had, because of the connections that I had. And it worked out really well with the girls. So we now have 2 kids. This is Mason and Toby, who's not pictured, obviously. The experience taught me the importance of building strong relationships and a large network. And I absolutely say, hands down, building strong relationships with the right people, that's the key point, with the right people is the number one thing you can do to be successful in business. So much more important than every different ninja strategy you've ever heard of. Just strong relationships really are the foundation to a successful and thriving business. And don't just take my word for it. This man knows a thing or two. Richard Branson, succeeding in business is all about making connections. It's all about personal contact. You need to get out and about, meeting people and developing relationships. And the man knows a thing or two. So here's what we're going to cover. I'm going to talk about how I went from no business to a 6-figure business, how I make over 6 figures, multiple 6 figures a year now from my blog and my podcast and also my regular offline business. I'm going to give you examples of others who are making 6 to 7 figures a year by connecting with VIPs. I'm going to give you a 5-step process for creating cold emails that stand out from the crowd. I'm going to explain to you my Connect with Influencers course, which can help you to grow your online business by building relationships with VIPs and influencers. And then we're going to do, well, I'm not going to do Q&A because this isn't live, but I will be doing a live version of this. So if you want to do Q&A, if you want to ask me questions, you can come to that. So first, how I went from no business to 6 figures per year. Well, after I'd lost my job in the California recall election, I decided to reboot and go back to law school. So I went to law school, became a lawyer, paid my dues, basically working for other law firms. But I was working my butt off, 60-plus hour weeks. I really was not happy. I didn't see my family, didn't have time for hobbies or friends or anything like that. And the problem was I was not building a network. I was relying on my boss's networks. Does that sound familiar? Do you think you maybe do that? I wasn't thinking like an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur relies on himself. And that's not what I was doing, even though I was an employee and I needed to do that. So what I decided was I would apply the relationship building skills that I had honed in politics and apply them, build them into building my network and business. And that's when everything changed for me. So I was able to take the leap to start my own business. This was in 2011. And I opened my doors and all the relationship building paid off. My first month, I made 3 times what I'd made at my previous job. And in under 3 years, I made over $500,000. That might be big, large, might be small, might be big, depending on your situation. But, it was a significant chunk of change considering it really had to do with relationships. And I'm very, very fortunate. I've been profiled in Forbes. I've been selected as a super lawyer rising star. I'm still waiting for my cape. And, it all happened because I built a network of VIPs who mattered to my career. It happened because not just I know how to email someone. That's just the start. It's also is because I know how to also make a connection with VIPs and provide value to their lives. So let me give you some examples of some others. We're going to show you how some others do it. How they make 6 to 7 figures a year, connecting with VIPs, influencers, and people who matter. So this is Jeremy Hall. Jeremy's a really interesting guy. He spent about 15 years in the Air Force and in the Army, both. And he was actually with something called the Activity, which is kind of like the Green Berets or the Navy SEALs, very secretive Tier 1 special ops kind of stuff. Went into Iraq and Afghanistan, all kinds of stuff he can't even talk about. But here was the thing. After that, he had no private sector experience, zero, zilch. And he went to go finish his bachelor's degree because he also didn't have a bachelor's degree. He goes to University of Minnesota, so he's in Minneapolis, and he's a philosophy major, not a computer science major. And what did he want to do? He wanted to work for a tech startup as a philosophy major with zero private sector experience, and he knew no one. So the worst probably possible combination you could ever have to try and land yourself a job in that industry. Nevertheless, and the reason we met was because he took my course. He started applying the principles that I teach, and just with abandon. I've never seen someone do such a good job. He was very diligent, and he started doing simple things, not expensive things, very simple, using free tools, Twitter and email. Started connecting with people, introducing people as he met them, VPs to VPs, marketing execs to marketing execs, CEOs to CEOs. Started sharing relevant content with them, started reading the blogs and forums and books that other people he admired, he looked up to, recommended, and the books that they were reading, the sites that they were reading, and then he started sharing things. He just created consistent, focused action, and as a result, amazing. the CEO of Lead Pages actually created a position for Jeremy where he was working directly under the CEO, and he was promoted twice in his first 2 months working for the company. And get this, it was only 10 minutes from his house in Minneapolis. Most of the tech startup jobs are 1,500 miles away, right, on the coast. And yet he found a job right by his house. Great story. This is Bill Yarish. Bill worked for a small community newspaper in Florida. And he had the goal of he wanted to increase ad revenue from its current level of $10,000 a month for this, tiny little newspaper, like hardly anyone working for it. And so he began building relationships with advertisers using some of the strategies that I advocated: humor in emails, handwritten notes, getting to know the advertisers. And what's great is he actually didn't even take my premium course. He just used my free advice. And as a result, he sends me this email: yes, your advice does work. If you look at the underlined part in red, after 3 months of using humor and handwritten letters, advertising went from 9 pages to 20 pages, $20,000. So that's an over 100% increase. He doubled his revenue in 90 days. Amazing to see that impact. This is Chris Johnson. Chris is the founder of Simplifilm, which is a video production company out of Portland, Oregon. And by the way, there are about 7,000 video production companies around the country. And so they can be forgettable. But Chris had a bigger vision for his company. And he wanted the company to be more successful. So he wanted to focus on one particular area, which was creating videos for authors who are coming out with new books, like little videos to explain the book. And then hopefully the video would go viral, provide some great exposure for the book, explain to people why they should buy it. And so he started doing this, and he worked his way up from smaller authors to bigger and bigger authors until he could get some of the biggest names. And he set a goal for himself of working with some of the biggest names out there. And as a result, he was successful. He has worked with Robert Greene, Arianna Huffington, Seth Godin, Ryan Holiday. All these authors have worked with him to create videos. And also, as a result of his strategies, $1 million a year last year and $2 million this year projected. Now, and what I love about it is what he did, it's similar to a strategy that I advocate called the conversation list strategy, which is basically taking taking a list of 50 people who you'd like to connect with and deepen your relationship with, and then he would divide them up into different buckets based on how frequently he wants to follow up with them. So the people that are really high priority, who referred a lot of business to him, those people he would follow up with on a really regular basis, like on a weekly basis. Other people maybe once a month, other people maybe once a quarter. All of this using a CRM program in order to manage it all. So let's talk about how to create emails that stand out from the crowd. I'm going to break down the 5 different steps for you, and then I'm going to go into them deeper. Okay, so number 1 is grease the wheels. Number 2, brevity is king. Number 3, communicate how you will benefit them. Number 4, make it fun. Number 5, find commonalities. Let's dive into these. So first, let's go back to Noah Kagan, who I mentioned earlier. These are the cookies he sent me. I'm going to use my relationship with him as an example for how you can do this. So you can take one cold email, turn it into an actual relationship with the person. So when I first tried to contact Noah, this is a little embarrassing, but I'm going to share it with you guys anyways. I did it all wrong. This is a little embarrassing. So here's the actual email. I sent an email through their support forum to some support person. And I said, can I interview Noah? I would love to ask about his experiences building AppSumo and working on other startups. I would publish and publicize the interview on my blog, which caters to entrepreneurs and business owners. It would run 30 to 45 minutes. Oh my God. I would record the interview using phone or Skype. So he had no idea who I was. The one thing I did do right is I gave examples of other interviews I had conducted, but there was not a great amount of benefit here. I had a no-name blog. He'd never heard of me before, and I didn't have really credibility. And I also wanted to talk about just everything under the sun, which he does lots of interviews like that. There's nothing interesting about it. No reason to say yes. So they promptly turned me down, which is exactly what they should have done. Here is the actual email that actually got his attention. Got his response saying, you write a great cold email. And here's what it was. The subject line was, interview for Art of Manliness, ? Hey Noah, thanks for your tweet about my Art of Manliness post mentioning you. I'm actually doing another piece for Art of Manliness about why people should share their failures, and I wanted to see if I could grab 5 to 7 minutes of your time to talk, preferably via Skype, about your Facebook experience and what effect talking about it openly has had on others. Basic idea of the piece is that sharing your failures makes people more human and relatable. Let me know if you're interested, and we can set it up. And then I also have some PSs there. Here's me quoting our mutual friend Andrew Warner in Forbes, Social Proof. Here's another Forbes piece I wrote featuring your buddy Ramit. Again, more social proof. Just forgot to link it, actually. And then PPS, I love tacos too, so I can't be a bad guy. A little bit of humor at the end. Let's look at the subject line. Now, your subject lines need to be relevant. They need to be beneficial to the recipient. And there needs to be some familiarity baked in. So if they already know your name from social media or blog comments or something like that, they're much more likely to even open the email to begin with because they recognize your name from something else, which is what happened for me and Noah. But in this case, also there needs to be benefit in the subject line. It needs to be very short. So I say interview for Art of Manliness. Now, Noah knew that Art of Manliness is a very high traffic blog and that an interview for that publication would lead to probably a link back to his site, leading to more traffic for his site, leading to more revenue, more income for him. So those are all good things, all stuff that he wants, right? And so there's big benefit to that. Now, inside the body of the email, that also needs to have some benefit as well. That you need to clearly articulate the benefit that's in there. So I said, I want to see if I could grab 5 to 7 minutes of your time to talk. Very tiny, a little bit amount of time via Skype about your Facebook experience and what effect talking about it openly has had on others. Now, what was the Facebook experience? He actually had worked for Facebook. He'd been employee number 30 at Facebook, and then he was fired a year later. And he's talked openly about it. He's written blog posts about it. He even did a course on Creative Live about failure. And so he's really kind of fascinated by it. But I got the sense that it's not something that people are going to reach out to him and want to just do an interview just on that topic, even though it's something he's fascinated about. So when you do that, when you reach out to someone, you say, I want to interview you, which is providing them with exposure. And you do it for a platform that's got a little bit of traffic, like not my own at that time. It was Art of Manliness, which I got a lot more traffic. Then you get a lot more, you're going to get a lot further. You're more likely to be successful. So, and it was only 5 to 7 minutes of his time, such a tiny amount of time for such great benefit. So it was definitely worth it for him. And then a couple of things, be casual, have fun with it. That stands out. If you don't capitalize everything, then it stands out. It looks like it's an email from a person rather than an email from a bot or an email that's a mass email to a lot of different people. So like the first letter, I, was lowercase. The question mark at the end inspires curiosity. Why is there a question mark at the end? That's unusual. I don't usually see that in subject lines. I need to open this email to figure out why there's a question mark at the end. And then I say things like your buddy, and there's no period at the end of some of my lines there. There's 3 PSs, PS, PPS, PPF, PPPS. That's unusual. So it shows the recipient, and Noah's someone who's got a sense of humor, that I'm going to be someone who has a sense of humor too, So that's something you want to do. Even if you don't have a sense of humor, there are ways you can make things a little bit light. Time commitment, very short, as I mentioned, 5 to 7 minutes. That's it. All the questions need to be pre-answered. Who, what, where, when, why. Who, what, where, when, why, okay? All these things need to be answered in the email. Now, let's talk about the 5 different steps. Number 1 was grease the wheels, okay? So how did I do that? Well, I mentioned Noah in print a couple of different times. And even though I did that in Forbes and Art of Manliness, listen to me loudly, you don't need to do this in Forbes or Art of Manliness if you don't write for those publications. You can write for other publications. It really depends on your recipient. Try and think, okay, if this is someone I want to connect with, where should I write about them? Where's the biggest place I can write about them that will get on their radar screen, okay? So I'd done this in Forbes one time, and the first time I tweeted him and said, hey, you were mentioned by Andrew Warner, who I interviewed, in this Forbes article I co-authored, and I gave him the link. And then later, he actually contacted me when I mentioned him in Art of Manliness. He actually was aware of it before I was, so I knew he was well aware of it. He knew what Art of Manliness was. Turns out I found out later that it was his brother who told him about it. He was a big reader of Art of Manliness. Grease the wheels, okay? Now, the next step in greasing the wheels is trying to find other opportunities before you've even emailed the person to have a dialogue with them. So at that time, Noah was pretty active on Twitter. And he posts, hey, can someone please invent a doctor's office that sees patients on time? And I responded, trying to be helpful. I always schedule doctor's appointments first thing in the morning. Less chance I will be running late and will take you on time. I read it now and it looks kind of annoying and preachy. But, excuse me, what I was trying to do was be helpful, be valuable, and continue to be on their radar screen. Okay? Number 2, brevity is king. Oh my gosh, I say this over and over again, and it drives me crazy. No one listens to it. Over 100 years ago, Jack London said, just a tip of advice, never write on both sides of the sheet when you were sending a letter to a busy man. And yet people do it anyways. The problem was 100 years ago, you had to write on paper. Now you got email, digital ink. You can write 500,000 words. It doesn't cost you anything, except no one's going to respond to something like that, especially someone who's really busy. Here's an example of an email I received not that long ago. Subject line, completely confusing. int.330 mun small business costliest property and liability insurance claims. No idea what that's about. And then I look through and there's all this text. No idea what it's about. Insurance? What the heck does that have to do with me? I finally figured out that they were offering some experts up for an audio interview with me. They must have found my podcast, I guess, and they thought that I could... Oops. Excuse me, guys. They thought that I could do, and I guess would be interested in interviewing them or something like that. So that was not a great approach. And the funny thing was, in Gmail, you've got this little image up at the top here that comes out. Well, that's attached. It's attached from your Google Plus profile. Well, this was the image. This was the image of the woman who sent it to me. So just a little tip to you, if you're going to send out professional emails, you might want to look at that. Make sure your headshot's email. Here's another email that I received. This is actually after one of my webinars, this very webinar. Someone attended this webinar, found it valuable apparently, and spot on, and then they sent me this email. This is the whole email. Oh my gosh, it's like I'm beating my head against the wall looking at this email. It's so frustrating. It's like, oh my God. And then there's the action point down here, and they're asking, listen to this. Tell me what I have to do to gain your proactive support that can directly achieve my objective. I don't even know who you are. Why is that? And then actually, when you look at it more closely, he says, I have 2 targets, Matt Damon and Steven Spielberg. He wanted, who I assume are in your network, like I know them personally. He wanted me to introduce them. And this same person, a couple of weeks later, emailed me and was angry that I hadn't introduced them and said I shouldn't be talking about relationship building if I'm not willing to introduce him apparently to Steven Spielberg and Matt Damon. So apparently I shouldn't be doing this. So here's an example of a very short email that's a lot more effective. Now my friend Andrew Warner over at Mixergy has got a very popular podcast called Mixergy, and I love introducing him to new guests because I meet new people and I think they'd be a good guest. So I'll send very short emails like this to him, saying like, hey, here's some possible guests. And you know what? I don't need to put all the text in there because I can include links, link out to other sources of information if they want to get more information on them, at that person. Number 3, communicate how you will benefit them, okay? Possible benefits. There's so many different ways you can benefit someone who you're reaching out to via email. Interviewing them is one I've been talking about. Great way. Why? Because you're providing exposure for a podcast, an article, a blog post, or whatever. Is everyone going to say yes? Absolutely not. There are plenty of people that's taken me months or years, people I'm still pursuing, been trying to get for a podcast for a long time, and no luck. An introduction is another great benefit. You can email someone, say, I'd like to introduce you to someone. By the way, that's a better approach than just introducing them because it might not be a good fit. But especially the busier the person, the more likely I'm going to do that. So you can email them and say, I'd like to introduce you to someone, and that's a great benefit. Introductions can go a long way. A testimonial, just emailing someone and saying, great, doing a testimonial is great. Say you write a review on Amazon for some book, for some author you look up to. Send an email to them saying, hey, just want to let you know, FYI, I just wrote this review. Or better yet, record a video, like just record a video of you talking into the camera. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Another benefit is promoting a product or book. Like, how can I promote you? How can I help to promote you? You don't need to have like a huge following in order to do that. You can tell your mother-in-law to go buy that book. You can tell your book club, let's read this book next month. If it's a business, you can frequent that business if it's someone you want to support. Okay? A recommendation or resource. This is so easy. I mean, you just need to find out what someone is interested in, what their passions are, what their personal passions are, what their hobbies are. and then give them recommendations or resources. Help them with that, okay? Here's a great example. Asherita, she wanted to connect with authors, female authors. And so she started creating these video book reviews, which is something that I advocate people to do. I recommended it. She started doing it, and amazing impact. Here's what she says. Wow, can I say what a great connection point this is? Authors and publishers love to see the video reviews. It's helped to promote their videos to their followings through shares and retweets. I've made several connections with authors along this way, and 2 even agreed to follow up video interviews because of my reviews. Isn't that amazing? So she went from reading these books and just liking them to actually in like 2 minutes of work. It's so easy to do. You just flip open your laptop, look directly into the camera. You don't even need special software because you can record this stuff directly into YouTube. You can record from your webcam directly into YouTube, and you just review the book in 2 to 3 minutes. Say, this is why I suggest it. Bam, you're done. You don't even need to embed it in a blog if you don't have a blog, but you can also do that. So such a great strategy for building relationships with influencers and VIPs who you want to connect with. Now, here's another great example. It'll show someone who, I like the way she does this. Jacqueline Duplessis, who's from South Africa. I connected with her a number of months ago, and after we connected, she sent me an email saying, I noticed that you use Bitly to shorten and track links you share on Twitter. Thought you might be interested in knowing how to get your URLs branded like big companies. So like if the New York Times shares something on Twitter, then it looks, instead of being like bit.ly/ blah, 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 it's more like ny.ti/ blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of branded. So she made a quick video to show you how you can do the same quickly and cheaply if you wanted to. So you check out the video. It's got this whole step-by-step. She shows me exactly how to do it. It was about 6 minutes long. The other thing that I love about this is that it's something she can just rinse and repeat. Other people that she meets, probably haven't done the same thing, probably would get the same value out of it that I did. So you can go and continue doing this over and over and over again. Number 4 is making it fun, okay? I introduced Manish Sethi to Brett McKay, the founder of Commonalities. And when I introduced him, Manish was working on this new product called Pavlok, a device that doesn't track what you do but changes what you do. And he says, long story short, don't go to the gym, get electrocuted. If that's not manly, I don't know what is. Then he says at the bottom, any interest in getting shocked yourself? Because Lord knows I want to do it too. What I love about this is he knew Commonalities had a large platform and could give him a lot of exposure. But did he ask to be a guest on the podcast? Did he ask for exposure? No. In fact, actually, if you look at the third to last paragraph, he says, I want to know how I can help you in any way, be it by spreading your posts, writing your content for you, hosting your content, or introducing you to anyone you want to know. That's the way to go about it. That's the way to approach someone who you've just been introduced to. What can I do for you? Even if they've got a successful site already, there's probably something they could use help with. And you know what? It actually worked out pretty well for him because Manish later was a guest on the Commonalities podcast. Number 5, find commonalities, okay? So this is my first email over to Dan Pink. I said, I just want to check in with you and see if there are any coordinated efforts for promoting your new book. And it turns out Dan and I had worked together around the same time at the same place. In our case, it was the White House. We'd both worked in the White House around the same time, so we knew some people in common. But it doesn't have to be the White House, of course. It could be Starbucks. It could be Blockbuster Video. Are there any Blockbuster Videos around anymore? It could be Toys R Us. It could have been, who knows? It could have been you're fans of the same team. It could be you're from the same small town, North Carolina. Whatever it is, whatever the commonality, make sure you use that. So does that seem pretty simple, you guys? I kind of raced through it here because I want to do it quickly and not waste your time. But I want to give you a larger glimpse of what the full picture looks like. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, it's not just about email. It's not just about having email templates that you can send to VIPs. I'm going to send you guys some email templates. But it's really about the relationship. It's really about the connection. It's about where do you go to the next level? How do you be consistent? How do you make it a habit? How do you continue to follow up? How do you take that follow-up to the next level? How do you turn it into actual revenues for your business? How do you turn it into actual opportunities? How do you grow your business because of those relationships? That's the bigger picture, okay? So here's the full outline. This is what I call my Connect with Influencers system. Number 1, conquering your mindset. This is so important. Everyone at almost every level have got mindset problems, psychological barriers that hold you back from building those authentic relationships with VIPs who can help your career. They're afraid of rejection. We're all afraid of rejection. We're all afraid that we are going to be turned away, that they're not going to respond to our email, or not interested in talking to us. And the truth is, it's way overplayed. That's completely unlikely. It's mostly in your head. If you take a approach like I advocate of coming forward out of admiration, respect, and in a spirit of giving and cooperation, then you're going to be greeted with open arms in most instances, okay? Number 2, maximizing your productivity. The other objection that I hear from everyone is, oh man, yeah, I'd love to, build relationships with influencers, but I don't have the time. I'm too busy. Well, you know what? If you're struggling now, or if you're not achieving the results that you want for your business or your career, then I think you need to reevaluate that, because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all struggle with having a limited amount of time. And so I think that there are many things that you can do in order to manage your time better. And, just to mention one of them is actually point number 3, creating your conversations list. Now, conversations list, I don't have enough time to talk about this. I could do a whole presentation on it. But basically what I advocate you to do is create a list of the 50 plus people who you'd like to build or deepen a relationship with over the course of the next 12 months. These are people that you admire, people that you are engaged and inspired by, who you'd like to support, and who you'd like to bring into your circle of friends 3 to 5 years from now. Your close connections that you could just pick up the phone or send an email to, and you always get a response. You always get some support, right? Who are those people? Well, if you don't put together a list, you'll never be consistent in going after the right people. So the goal is to put together a list, brainstorm. It shouldn't take you more than 15 or 20 minutes. Brainstorm this list, and then spend the next 12 months consistently following up over time. No big rush, and just having a conversation over time. And this conversation often today, especially in the online world, exists in different mediums. It might exist over email. It might exist over Twitter. It might exist in Facebook. It might exist in Instagram. There are many different ways that it exists. But the point is, it needs to start with your list, putting together a list. There are other types of conversations lists as well for events and organizations, but I don't have time to cover those. Number 4, laying the groundwork using social media. Of course, social is always important. I just mentioned it a moment ago, but I think that oftentimes it's a time suck because people are using it in the wrong way. The way I advocate using social media is less than 15 minutes a day. I spend less than 15 minutes a day on social media, out of Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, but I get great results from it. Number 5, mastering face-to-face networking, because we all struggle. We all struggle with this, with going face-to-face and meeting people face-to-face. What are some things that you can do in order to get better at building relationships face-to-face? There actually are a number of things that you can do. One is going in with a giving attitude and having a goal in mind. When you go to an event, like a cocktail party, something like that, you can set a goal for yourself. It could be, I'm going to talk to 3 people, have meaningful conversations at this event. It could be, I'm not leaving until that clock hits 8 p.m., so I better stick around, Or maybe you looked up in advance who's going to be in attendance, and you picked out 4 people who you absolutely want to say hello to, even if it's just a quick hello. Okay? How to use email, I talked about that here, but there are other types of email as well, which I haven't really had the time to talk about. So you see that's step number 6. Step number 7, create a follow-up system. This is the low-hanging fruit of relationship building, creating a follow-up system. I find that 90% of the time, if I don't follow up, then the other person I've met doesn't follow up. And here's the thing. We hate going to cocktail parties. That's what we talked about at the beginning, right? We hate going to cocktail parties. We'd rather be with our friends. We'd rather be with our family. We'd rather be engaging in hobbies. And yet we realize that it's important to go to events where we meet people. And yet we don't follow up. And so we're dooming ourselves to continue on the hamster wheel, to continue to go back again and again to these types of cocktail parties that we acknowledge we don't even like going to in the first place. And then finally, step number 8 is increasing ROI and optimizing your system. There's a number of ways you can do that by monitoring the results that you're getting, which is going to be different for every business depending on what kind of revenues you have coming in, what kind of clients or customers you have coming in. But the one of the things you can do is monitor those as they come in, and you can use that in order to optimize your system. You can reevaluate on an annual or a quarterly basis, am I connecting with the right people? Because sometimes your goals change. Sometimes you decide to pursue something new, so you need to be nimble and adapt. I've worked in politics, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, law, and now I've built my reputation through online blogging and podcasting. All those industries. Do you think I kept the same 50 people in my conversation list from the beginning of my career? Absolutely not. It continues to change over time. So you need to be nimble. You need to be able to adapt, and that's one of the things that I talk about there. So now that I've given you the playbook on using email, what more do you need, right? But check out this recent email I received after this very webinar. John, I was just on the cold email webinar. Yay, very informative and interesting. Yay! But then he transitions down. Look at the sales pitch. Second, I want to now introduce you to my product that you or your legal colleagues will love and be able to utilize in your firm. Take paperless depositions via laptop or iPod. Save money, less travel, easy to follow. Would love to talk to you more about my product with me, with you, or someone you think could pay me money to buy my product. Ugh. Man, I actually emailed this guy back and I said, really? You sure you were on my webinar? Because that seemed like you were communicating what would benefit you, not what would benefit me. And he said he honestly didn't realize that it came across as a sales pitch. And I believe that's sincere, and I believe that's true, because I think that we often don't realize what we're doing. We don't realize that you haven't built up any trust yet. I had never heard from this person before, and he immediately sent me a sales pitch. So I think that it is crucial that we be cognizant of what we're putting out into the world and how we're showing up. And so I want to ask you an important question. This is a very important question. Who are you passionate about serving? Who are you passionate about serving? When you know your mission, you know who you're passionate about serving, well, emailing VIPs becomes easy because it's about the larger mission. And your income, your impact, your influence, all those things will rise as your network grows. Bigger network equals greater freedom. Now, there's a saying, show me your friends and I will show you your future. Well, I like a twist on that. I like a slightly different version of that. And what I say is your relationships will determine your future. Who you build relationships with today will determine how you spend your time in the future, whether you spend more time with family, whether you spend more time engaging in the activities that you want to, greater financial freedom, greater revenue, greater income, or whether you spend more time at work, whether you continue to struggle. What relationships you develop today will determine that future. So do you want to leave your future to chance, or do you want to create the future that you deserve? I don't know about you, but I fall into the latter camp. I want to be deliberate and intentional and build relationships with the right people, the people who inspire me, the people who I want to support, people like Danny Inney, who I'm inspired by, who I want to support. Maybe that's just me, but if you agree, I'd love to tell you a little bit about my course, Connect with Influencers. Now, my course, Connect with Influencers, is really about how to build better relationships with the right people. It's a step-by-step system for doing that. Even if you feel like you have nothing to offer, even if you feel like you don't have any time, you don't know any influencers or VIPs today, if you're introverted or shy or you don't know where to start, this course can help you with all those things. It's about how to build an online business fast by building relationships with the right people. This will apply to any type of business, but it works particularly well with building an online business. As I mentioned, over the last couple of years, I've built my business, my online business, to the point where I'm bringing in multiple six figures a year in revenue, and it's actually replaced my legal income. Believe it or not, as a lawyer, it's become a larger share of my revenue. So it's a step-by-step system for turning critical relationships into email subscribers, traffic, and revenue for your online business. Also included in the course is case studies, a number of case studies, how successful top performers have used relationships to get to the top. I've got a number of bonus interviews in there, including with a number of great authors, Susan Rowan, Dory Clark, Pam Slim. And there's a couple of questions I get really frequently. One of them is, what if I don't have anything to offer VIPs and influencers because I'm young or just starting out? Insert objection here, right? There's every different objection you can imagine. Well, I include a video in the course on how to develop self-confidence and suppress fear of failure with VIPs because so many people struggle with that. And I also include a case study, how Jeremy Hall built relationships with tech VPs when he knew no one, had zero experience, and was just a philosophy major still in college. Another question that I get frequently is how do I build a relationship without sounding like I'm selling something? That's another common question that people ask. Well, I included another video in there on how to have conversations without sounding salesy. It's a little bit of strategy behind it. So here's what you get. There's step-by-step video guides, 8 modules, 40 videos for connecting with influencers and VIPs, homework assignments, exact word-for-word email templates and scripts, a personal list of tools for connecting with influencers, include a number of worksheets, including the monthly accomplishments review worksheet and results and revenue worksheet. There's a private Facebook community. You can ask other people questions who are on the same journey as you are, and you consume the material on your own schedule or at our pace, which I suggest over a course of about 5 weeks. So everything included is over $2,000 value. There's, as I said, 8 modules, 40 videos, the community. I'm going to keep this open. That says until midnight of Friday, but I'm going to keep it open even longer than that. I'm actually going to keep it open until after the webinar, which will probably be July 2nd, I think. I'm looking at Thursday, July 2nd. So we'll keep it open until after that. You'll receive an email. 60-day money-back guarantee if it's not a good fit for you. There are 2 different levels for it. So there's the base level, connect with influencers, 8 modules, the 40 videos, community, and lifetime access for $297. Or there's the more recently created CWI Elite. This was in response to a number of requests that I got from people. What people wanted was more. They wanted email templates, so I include over 30 email templates drafted by me straight from the White House to your email, to your Gmail, or whatever. And there's also the Email Bullseye tool, which is a software tool I'm really proud of. And so I want to show you that. Here's how it works. You ever said, oh man, if I could only find that person's email address? Well, now you can. So here's what you do. You enter if you know the name of the person you're trying to connect with, which you of course would if you're trying to connect with someone, write the name, middle initial if known, or name or initial, last name, and then the domain of the company that you're trying to reach. And then it spits out every different incarnation possible for that email address. And then you can just take that and plug it into a number of different resources that I recommend where you can test to see if the email is the accurate email. And bam, you will know how to contact that person, so nothing will stop you. So now every person who signs up, I said before the end of the webinar, but I will extend this as well. We'll get a 20-minute Kickstart coaching call with me, and I charge over $400 an hour for coaching. And I also am going to give away my pre-recorded Networking with Purpose Live videos and action guide workbook, plus 2 60-minute coaching calls, that pre-recorded calls. That's $127 value that you get as well. And third bonus, Find Time Now by my colleague Mandy Ellison. It's a separate course, show you how to discover over 20 to 40 hours per month. That's a $200 value. Okay, and as I mentioned, I think earlier, there's a 60-day money-back guarantee. And the special gift that I mentioned at the beginning, if you go to connectwithinfluence.com/conversations list, you can download a template for creating your conversations list, plus an additional 5 cold email templates from there, okay? connectwithinfluence.com/conversations list. So I'm not going to be able to take questions because this is a video, but I will take questions when we do the webinar. So $297 or $397, if you're interested, go to connectwithinfluence.com/any-sign up, and I will talk to you guys soon.